Taurus, I'm picking up on a really heavy emotional energy around this reading tonight. Not in an explosive way, but more like someone has been holding everything inside for far too long. And before we get started, thank you so much for being here with me today. Whether you're listening to this late at night, while you're trying to unwind after a long day, or maybe you just happened to come across this reading at the exact moment you needed something that feels a little more emotionally understood, I'm really glad you're here. And as always, Taurus, take what genuinely resonates with your heart and gently release anything that doesn't feel aligned with where you are right now. Okay, I want to slow down with this energy for a second because the very first thing I'm feeling here is incredibly strong. There's someone who is still carrying a deep amount of pain over the distance between you, and honestly, I don't think this is the kind of connection they've truly been able to let go of. If anything, the more time that passes, the heavier these feelings seem to become inside of them. There's something about this connection that makes me feel like both of you have been trying very hard to appear okay, but underneath all of that, neither of you really are. And I have a feeling the cards are going to say a lot about that tonight. So, Taurus, let's go ahead and step into this reading together. Taurus, there's something very strange about this energy. Not the kind of pain that explodes all at once. More like the kind of pain that's been sitting inside someone for so long, it's quietly become part of their everyday life. I keep seeing the image of someone sitting alone under a dim yellow light late at night. Their phone lights up a few times, and then they flip it back over like they just can't handle facing their own emotions any longer. And Taurus, I really do feel like this person still loves you very deeply. Not in a passing way, not the kind of feeling that comes and goes. This feels like love that continues to exist underneath all the silence. Even while they try to move forward with their life, some part of them keeps finding its way back to this connection. The Five of Cups comes out first, and the energy around this card feels incredibly heavy. It feels like coming home after a long, exhausting day. The kitchen light is still on. Everything is sitting exactly where it always was. But someone important is no longer there. Some sadness doesn't cry out loud anymore. It just quietly follows a person through their days. In the smallest moments, wanting to text someone and stopping halfway through. Hearing an old song and suddenly feeling their chest sink for a few seconds. Seeing your name somewhere unexpectedly and feeling their entire body go still. This person carries a lot of regret, Taurus, and I think what hurts them most is knowing how real this connection once felt. Then the Three of Swords appears, and honestly, this doesn't feel like heartbreak that is fully healed. It feels more like a heart that's been trying to stay strong for far too long. Someone who still goes to work, still replies to messages, still moves through life like everything is normal, while emotionally, they've been exhausted for a very long time. There are nights where they just lie there in silence for hours. No music, no TV, no distractions. Just letting their mind drift back through old memories of you. And the saddest part is, I think they've tried many times to convince themselves to let this connection go. But the harder they try, the more they realize their heart is still here. Taurus, this is not the energy of someone who has stopped loving you. This feels like someone trying to keep living with an emptiness they never truly accepted. And then the star appears. And honestly, this card softens the entire reading. It feels like after all the emotional heaviness, after all the exhausting nights, there's still a part of them that never completely stopped hoping. Not in some dramatic or unrealistic way, just in those quiet moments, in the middle of an ordinary day, they still wonder if the two of you could sit beside each other one more time. If maybe there's still a version of this connection, where neither of you has to pretend to be strong anymore. The star here feels like a small light left on in a dark room. Not bright enough to erase the sadness, but enough to keep someone waiting a little longer. And Taurus, I think the reason this person hasn't been able to fully walk away is because somewhere deep inside, they still feel like this connection was never truly over. And Taurus, the part of this energy that honestly makes me go quiet for a moment is that I don't think you're as okay as you've been trying to appear. I feel like you've become so used to swallowing your emotions and carrying them alone, to the point where even when your heart feels completely exhausted, you still tell people, I'm fine. The Four of Cups shows up here like a room with all the curtains closed, not because you've stopped feeling, but because you've grown tired of trying to explain your emotions to people who could never fully understand them anyway. There's a very specific kind of exhaustion around you right now, Taurus. The kind where after a long day, you just want to sit quietly under the soft yellow light in your kitchen late at night. Not talk to anyone, not open your heart to anything else for a while. And I keep seeing the image of your phone screen lighting up over and over again throughout this reading. Maybe it's an unread message. Maybe it's a name you still haven't fully removed from your heart. Or maybe it's just that moment where you see the screen light up and turn the phone back over again, like your heart doesn't have the energy to feel anything more tonight. And honestly, the saddest part is that you're not actually cold, Taurus. You're just trying to survive your emotions in the quietest way you know how. Then the Nine of Swords comes in, and the energy becomes much heavier here, because the things you don't say during the day start getting louder in the silence of the night. Some nights feel incredibly long, the kind of long where the room is completely quiet, but your mind never truly rests. You lie there staring at the ceiling, replaying old conversations like a habit you can't shut off anymore. You remember tiny details other people probably forgot a long time ago. The way they looked at you when things still felt close between you. An old message. A moment of silence between the two of you that only now you realize may have been the beginning of the distance. And Taurus, I think you've been strong for far too long. You carry emotions like someone who always feels responsible for keeping everything stable for everyone else around you, even while your own heart has been quietly cracking underneath it all. That's why the Queen of Cups feels so powerful in this reading, not in an overly romantic way. More like someone who loves so deeply, they eventually learn how to stay silent just to protect their own heart. You feel everything more deeply than people realize, much more deeply. You've just stopped letting people see that side of you so easily anymore. There are moments where you miss this person so much it almost hurts to breathe, but instead of reaching out, you keep yourself busy doing anything else. You turn the TV on without really watching it. You scroll through your phone without absorbing anything you're looking at. You let music play in the background, just so you don't have to sit inside the silence completely alone. The Queen of Cups here feels like someone sitting perfectly still, holding their phone in the dim light late at night, reading through an old conversation again, wondering how something that once felt so real became so distant. But Taurus, the strongest thing I'm picking up here is that I don't think you've fully allowed yourself to grieve this connection yet. You're still trying to manage your emotions too carefully, still trying to stay composed, still trying to convince yourself you've already moved past at least part of this, while deep underneath all of that, your heart has been tired for a very long time. And the deeper I move into this energy, the more it feels like the silence between you and this person isn't empty at all. It's carrying too many things that were never fully said. Too many emotions left sitting beneath the surface. Too many moments where both of you waited for the other person to speak first. And Taurus, I think that's exactly why this connection still feels so heavy even now. And the deeper I move into this connection, the more I feel like this person is not holding themselves together nearly as well as they appear to on the outside. There's a very heavy kind of silence surrounding their energy right now, Taurus. Not silence because they stopped loving you. More like the silence of someone who has carried too many emotions internally for too long, to the point where they no longer even know how to begin talking about them. The moon shows up here like a room with only one small light left on just before sunrise. Everything feels blurred, unclear, uncertain. And honestly, I think that's exactly where this person's mind has been lately. They wake up every day, still doing what they need to do, still answering people normally, still moving through life the way they're expected to. But inside their head, there's this emotional static that never fully quiets down. There are nights where they pick up their phone over and over again, opening old conversations, reading through old messages, typing something out, then deleting it before sending. Not because they don't want to talk to you, but because they're afraid. Afraid this distance has gone too far. Afraid that if they move towards you now, things may never feel the same again. But the thing exhausting them most is that no matter how hard they try to avoid these feelings, their heart keeps returning to you instinctively. The moon here feels like driving home after an unbearably long day, the streets almost empty, the radio playing softly in the background, and memories suddenly showing up in the moments where they least expect them. A familiar scent, an old street corner, a song the two of you used to listen to together. Tiny things like that are enough to completely pull them away from the calm exterior they've been trying so hard to maintain. And then the King of Cups appears. Taurus. I think this person has spent a large part of their life trying to become the stable one for everybody else. The type of person who keeps everything inside, who doesn't want anyone seeing them vulnerable, who never wants to become an emotional burden to other people. But this energy feels different now. It feels like they're starting to lose the strength to keep pretending they're okay. There's a very obvious emotional exhaustion here. Like someone sitting alone in a dark room after every conversation of the day has finally ended, taking off the last layer of composure they were wearing and being forced to sit face to face with the emptiness they've been trying to ignore this entire time. I keep seeing the image of someone sitting beside a window very late at night, doing absolutely nothing, just sitting there quietly, and honestly, sometimes silence says more than words ever could. The King of Cups here no longer feels strong in the traditional sense. It feels more like a heart that has spent so long trying to be emotionally mature that it almost forgot what it feels like to let someone hold its pain gently. Maybe they never fully told you this, Taurus, but I think this connection affected them far more deeply than you ever realized. Far more deeply. Then the Ten of Swords comes in, and honestly, this part of the reading catches in my chest a little, because this no longer feels like ordinary sadness. It feels like someone who has finally become emotionally exhausted after trying to endure for too long. There are days now where they don't even have the energy to keep analyzing everything anymore. They're no longer trying to figure out who was right or wrong, no longer trying to control their emotions the way they used to. What's left is just this very deep emptiness. The kind of emptiness that appears after missing someone for so long, while still feeling unable to truly reach them. I feel like there were moments where this person tried to convince themselves they needed to let this connection go, to move on with their life, to stop looking back towards you. But every single time they tried, those suppressed emotions found their way back during the smallest quiet moments late at night. And Taurus, the thing I can't stop thinking about in this part of the reading, is how emotionally fragile this person feels right now. Like they've been wandering in circles inside their own longing for far too long. And I don't know if you feel this too, but the more I sit with this energy, the more it feels like the silence between the two of you may not be able to stay the same much longer. And maybe that's exactly why the energy starts shifting here, Taurus. Not loudly, not in some dramatic movie scene kind of way. More like someone who has finally sat with their own pain long enough that they can't keep pretending this distance doesn't affect them anymore. I can feel a very subtle movement beginning inside this connection. Like after too many silent nights, someone is finally starting to step out of the emotional room they've kept themselves locked inside for so long. Then the Knight of Cups appears, and honestly, this card softens the energy almost immediately. The defensiveness doesn't feel as strong anymore. That constant need to appear emotionally controlled at all costs, it starts fading a little here. This feels like someone sitting in front of their phone, close to midnight, reading over a message that was never sent. Not because they don't know what to say, but because there are too many honest things that need to be said. And I think this person is beginning to realize something important. Some connections become more painful the longer the silence lasts. And Taurus, I don't think they want to keep living in this space where the two of you almost feel erased from each other anymore. Something inside of them is softening. Just a little, but enough for them to start imagining what reconnecting might look like. The Knight of Cups here doesn't feel rushed. It feels more like a heart that's wandered in circles for a very long time and is finally becoming honest about its own emotions. I keep seeing the image of someone driving slowly through the night, streetlights reflecting across the window, the radio playing quietly in the background. And inside their head, there are hundreds of different versions of the conversation they wish they could have with you. Unspoken apologies, feelings that were never fully named. And maybe the thing that haunts them most is realizing this connection never truly disappeared from their heart, even while they tried to live as though it no longer mattered. Then the Page of Pentacles comes in, and suddenly the energy feels much more grounded. This isn't only longing anymore. It's not just emotions sitting silently inside them anymore. It feels like someone quietly beginning to reorganize their life in a way that makes space for you again, very quietly, very slowly, but genuinely. I think there was a time when they tried to avoid facing this connection altogether. They may have convinced themselves that if they stayed busy enough, if they kept life moving fast enough, eventually the feelings would disappear on their own. But now, they're starting to see things differently. Maybe they're changing parts of their routine. Maybe they're letting go of old habits. Maybe they're finally looking back at what created the distance between the two of you in the first place. The Page of Pentacles here feels like someone sitting alone in a quiet kitchen very late at night, a cup of coffee in front of them that's already gone cold. And for the first time in a long time, they're allowing themselves to seriously ask, what if this connection still has a chance? Not in an idealized way, not in an unrealistic fantasy, just in a very human way, a very honest way. The kind of realization that some people pass through your life and disappear forever, but there are other people who, no matter how far you try to move forward, your heart quietly keeps returning to them. And then the Wheel of Fortune appears. Taurus, I don't think these emotions are staying hidden internally much longer, because the energy feels like it's beginning to move outward now. Things that stayed still for too long are slowly starting to shift. It feels like after an endless stretch of silence, something is finally beginning to move again beneath the surface. I don't know if this becomes a phone call, an unexpected message, or simply the moment where neither of you can keep avoiding this connection anymore. But the Wheel of Fortune here carries the feeling that timing itself is beginning to turn, and the part that really stands out to me, Taurus, is that this person seems to feel it too. Like after all the lonely nights, after all the attempts to suppress their emotions, they're standing very close to a decision, one that maybe even they don't fully realize the emotional weight of yet. And I honestly think that moment is exactly when the things they buried the deepest started rising back to the surface, Taurus. This no longer feels like simple missing anymore. It no longer feels like ordinary heartbreak either. It feels more like someone finally reaching the point where they can't keep lying to their own heart about this connection anymore. The Two of Cups comes through here very strongly, but not in an overly dramatic or intensely romantic way. It feels quieter than that, more personal. Like out of all the people they've met, all the conversations they've had, no one ever made them feel truly seen the way you did. And Taurus, I don't think they ever fully told you that. You weren't just an emotional connection to them. You felt more like coming home, like finally stepping into a quiet room with soft yellow light after an exhausting day, and realizing you don't have to hold yourself together so tightly anymore. I keep feeling this person's energy shift every time your presence comes up in the reading, because with the rest of the world, they can continue playing the role of the composed one, the mature one, the emotionally controlled one. But with you, that emotional armor never stayed in place for very long. The Two of Cups here feels like two people understanding each other through things that never even had to be spoken out loud. A look, a pause, sitting beside each other in silence, and somehow still feeling full inside. And maybe the thing that scares them most now is that they still haven't found that feeling anywhere else. Then the Hermit appears, and suddenly the energy becomes much more private. Almost like we're stepping into a part of their emotions they've never fully shown anyone before. Honestly, Taurus, I don't think they talk about you very much. In fact, they may even act like everything is already behind them, like they've moved on, like this connection doesn't affect them that deeply anymore. But the Hermit tells a completely different story when they're alone. There are very late nights, when everything outside has finally gone quiet, and that's when memories of you return the strongest. Not because they're trying to think about you. The memories just appear on their own. An old voice message, a photo they never deleted, a song that randomly comes on while they're driving, a sentence you once said suddenly replaying in their head while they're standing alone in the kitchen pouring a glass of water before sunrise. And honestly, the part of this energy that catches in my chest the most is the feeling that they've held on to so many things connected to you, not because they're attached to objects, but because their heart never truly became ready to end this connection. The Hermit feels like someone sitting in complete darkness for a very long time, their phone screen lighting up for a few seconds, their finger hovering over your name, before quietly locking the screen again without saying anything. Not because they stopped wanting to reach out, but because the emotions here feel too real, too deep. And sometimes, the deepest connections are also the ones people become most afraid of losing completely. Then the Ace of Pentacles appears. And Taurus, this honestly feels like the first moment in the entire reading where I can clearly sense the desire to build something truly lasting. This isn't only emotion anymore. It isn't only late-night longing anymore. It feels like someone beginning to think much further ahead than they ever allowed themselves to admit before. The Ace of Pentacles here feels like someone standing outside the door of a familiar home, unsure if they're still welcome there, but quietly hoping it hasn't fully closed to them yet. And I don't think this person wants to repeat the old version of this connection anymore, Taurus. They don't want to reconnect only to lose each other all over again. That's why the energy feels much more serious here, almost like they've started asking themselves, if there's still a chance this time, am I emotionally mature enough to hold this connection more carefully than before? And honestly, I don't think that's the question of someone who has stopped loving you. That feels like the question of someone who still sees a future inside this connection, even after trying for so long to hide that from themselves. But Taurus, the thing that stands out to me most right now is the feeling that a very honest truth is getting dangerously close to being spoken out loud. Like after all these months of silence, someone's heart is slowly reaching the point where it can no longer keep everything hidden inside. And maybe that's exactly why the entire energy of this connection begins to shift so noticeably here at the end. Taurus, It no longer feels completely stuck. It no longer feels like two people standing motionless at opposite ends of silence. Instead, it feels like after a very long season of emotional survival, something is finally beginning to move in a different direction. The world appears first. And honestly, there's something very special about the feeling of this card here. Not in a perfectly wrapped up happy ending kind of way. More like an emotional cycle that's been carrying on for far too long, finally beginning to close. I keep seeing the image of someone standing near a window just before sunrise. The room is still quiet, their phone is still lying there untouched, but internally, they're no longer the same version of themselves they used to be. Some pain, when you carry it long enough, eventually stops making you want to run from it. It starts making you want to heal instead. And Taurus, I honestly think both of you have changed deeply since this distance began. Not because the feelings disappeared, but because both of you finally understand just how deep those feelings really were. The world here feels like a door slowly opening after being locked for months. No one is trying to force it open anymore. No one is trying to win anymore. What's left are two hearts that have simply grown too tired of pretending this connection no longer matters. And I think that's exactly why the energy softens a little here, even though there are still so many emotions that haven't been fully spoken out loud yet. Then the Six of Wands appears, and Taurus. I genuinely feel a very strong reconnecting energy around this card. Not in a dramatic way, not like a movie scene. More like two people finally becoming tired of letting pride and distance overpower what they still feel for each other. I keep seeing the image of a very long late-night conversation. Maybe it starts with something small, a simple question, a short message. One moment where someone finally finds the courage not to stay silent anymore. But somehow, that small moment becomes the thing that changes everything afterward. The Six of Wands here doesn't only feel like victory, it feels more like after so many nights of carrying emotions alone, someone finally walks toward you instead of further away. And honestly, the part of this energy that moves me the most is the feeling that this connection between the two of you never truly died. It was buried underneath too much fear, too many defenses, too many moments where both of you tried to act like you no longer needed each other. But the closer we get to the end of this reading, the more obvious it feels that the emotions are still present on both sides. Very present. And then strength appears. Taurus. I honestly think this may be the most beautiful card to close this emotional journey with. Because it doesn't tell you to rush toward anything. It doesn't tell you to force the timing. It doesn't tell you to keep suffering silently either. It simply reminds you that sometimes the strongest thing a heart can do is soften again after being hurt for so long. Strength here feels like someone finally setting their emotional armor down after an exhausting day. No longer trying to control every feeling. No longer trying to appear perfectly composed. Just honestly admitting, I still feel this. And maybe, Taurus, that's what this connection truly needs from both of you now. Not who wins, not who loved harder, not who stayed silent longer, but two people finally becoming gentle enough with each other. After everything they've already survived emotionally, and honestly, I don't think this is the kind of connection that disappears easily. Because even after all the distance, after all the lonely nights, after all the unsent messages, both hearts still seem to quietly move toward each other in a way that feels very real. And the thing I keep thinking about most right now is the feeling that an important moment may be getting very close. A moment where the silence between the two of you may finally stop remaining the same.